Welcome back to Studio Life, everybody. Today we're going to do something a little different. It's not been that long since I did a bit of a refit in here and showed everyone what was in here. But a few people have asked and there's been a few changes, so we're going to do another quick studio tour just to keep you up to date. So, my studio is here in my building, which was built specifically to be a studio in my garden. I built it 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, 2.5 years ago now, I suppose. Yeah, totally bespoke construction, hired a builder. I designed it, showed my design to the builder, who then did the building stuff from a design point of view to make it safe and you know, to make it work as a building. He then took my designs for the wall construction and the shape and the size and, you know, all the soundproofing and stuff. I've built a lot of studios before, so I knew what I was doing. So we did it together. It took a couple of months to build it, and I sort of moved in here around the end of the year, two and a bit years ago. And it's been great. Been in here every day ever since. So yeah, I run this as a mastering studio. I still do some mixing. I've been a mixing engineer since, well, I've been a sound engineer since 1990. I moved into mixing only probably around the early 2000s. And I've been doing mostly mixing until, I mean, I was doing some mastering here and there for people, and I was getting asked to do more and more. And then at the end of lockdown, I started doing it way more seriously. Sort of, it became my main thing. And I've been doing it ever since I built this studio on a daily basis. And I master for pretty much anyone. Some stuff is for labels, some stuff is for independent clients, some stuff is for people I know. There's a really interesting sort of group of people that use my services, which is really, it's nice for me, it's fun for me. I still do the odd mix here and there. I haven't stopped mixing. I just mostly do mastering. Don't really advertise my mixing services. The people that use me to mix know that I mix, and that's kind of how that happens. But yeah, this is where I work. So I'm running that business from here every day. I also have the Audio Firm, which is a plugin company, kind of like a startup, started last year with Vic from Phasertone. We've got one plugin out called Furnace. We've got another one on the way and more to follow that. On top of that, I run a couple of other businesses as well. So it's busy, but this is my main thing. I'm in here almost every day mastering, and obviously I run a YouTube channel. That doesn't take too long, believe it or not. It's probably half a day a week. I come up with ideas as I'm working and I just write them down, and obviously plugins come in constantly. So normally most weeks I'll review 1 or 2 plugins and I'll do a slightly different video every now and again. That's just how this works. Anyway, let's get stuck in and see what gear I've got in my studio. So, yeah, second camera angle's good for this, right? You can see here the Core 59s from Dyne Audio, relatively new addition. I was running the Lid 48s and I wanted to move up in the world, so Core 59s. I just love Dyne Audio, always have since M1 days years ago. So I desperately wanted to try them. The guys from Syntax dropped them off and instantly fell in love with them, to be honest. They just sound so fantastic. They're very familiar to me. They sound like Dyne Audio, but they just sound absolutely fantastic. NS10s, love them or hate them. I love them. I grew up with NS10s. My first job was in a studio that had NS10s, and so did the next one. The next one is like that was all that was around back then, and I learnt them inside out, and I still use them a lot. It is my most often point of reference whenever I'm doing anything. Check on the NS10s. There's certain points in the mix where I'll only work on NS10s. When I'm sitting the vocal in the mix, it's just NS10s. I find them really, really good for that. And then sitting on top of there is my Auratones. I've got some original old ones up on the shelf up there, but I'm not using those anymore. I bought these new ones a few months ago. They sound great. They're just the second point of reference after the NS10s. If it works on all 3 of those, I'm good. A new thing is headphones. Obviously, I've always had headphones and always use them. But in recent times, I've discovered how good they can be for checking and sometimes mixing and mastering on. So I've got a few pairs. I've got the Austrian Audio High X65s, open back mastering headphones. Really like these. They're kind of like my work workaday headphones. They're the ones I'm most likely to pick up and check things on. More recently, I got the Hyphen and Ananda Nanos on recommendation from Paul Third and Ed Thorne. Now, I've recently paired them with my new Topping DX5 Mark II headphone amp, DAC amp. These plus that blows your mind. It's incredible. The speed and the power of these things for the bottom end, it's unbelievable. If there's no way you can afford to put a room together with some world-class monitors, get a pair of these and get one of those, because these are about, what, they're under 400 quid I think now. The Topping DX5 Mark II is 300 quid, so sort of under 700 quid, world-class monitoring. You can trust these, honestly, they're incredible. I've also got a pair of DT, what are they, 770 Pros there for if anyone comes in. Sometimes I record vocals, they'll be using those more than likely. I've also got some DT 150s lying around somewhere, and I've still got a pair of these which I reviewed ages ago, which are the Talaman, what are they? Don't know what they are. But anyway, they were quite good. They were all right. So they're just like spare. So that's headphones, monitors covered. Right, what else have we got? Let's get into the computer. It's a Mac Studio. It's an M1 Max, which when I bought it not that long ago, probably 3 years ago, something like that, that was the highest spec Mac Studio there was. It's not caused me any trouble whatsoever. So it's staying for now. You know, I'm sure at some point I'll have to update it, but yeah, right now that is doing the business. So that's staying there. Audio interface, there is, where are we? We've got the Motu 16A. That's doing my left and right, and it's doing all the ins and outs of my analog outboard. I also have hooked up to its PreSonus Studio Live 24R. That's hooked up via AVB network connection. That just gives me some extra analog connections which I'm running all my drum machines into. I don't do lots of production, but when I do, I like to use my sort of classic old drum machines. I've got an old Casio RZ1 sampling drum machine. I've got an old Yamaha RX7, and then there's a newer Drum Brute Impact, and there's a Behringer Crave analog synth. Just toys really for having fun with. Right, covered interfaces. What's next? Okay, yeah, let's run through my outboard. So let's go from left to right in the racks. At the top there, we've got the Drama 1974. That's a stereo analog EQ. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 band with filters top and bottom. Got a lot of character. I really like it for just doing tiny little tweaks on the way in when mastering or on your stereo bus. It's a really nice thing. Underneath that is something quite rare. It's the Golly Compression Matrix 2, which at some point I will put a video out explaining what that is. But basically it's 4 stereo buses go into it, so generally drums, bass, guitars or synths, and then vocals. And it allows you to either leave them in the stereo mix but take them out of triggering the compressor, or the other way round. So you could generate stems with sidechain compression from things that aren't in the stem. So imagine putting your drum bus stem out as a stereo WAV, and it's compressed as if there's bass in there with it, but the bass actually isn't in the mix. It's really useful for generating stems basically, and it gives you upwards and downwards compression at the final stage of mixing, which I really like on my subgroups. Underneath that is my 500 rack, where I've got Golden Age Projects 73. They call it the Pre-573. Just if I ever do any vocals, it's really nice, very Neve sounding, pretty cool. Next to that is a Midas compressor. I don't really use that very much. That's generally used on things like this for voiceovers. Next to that is an IGS S-Type 500 series compressor. It's basically an SSL clone, but it's got, to me, it's got a nicer tone. It's got a mix control, which I like. It's got a really good side chain. Yeah, it just does the SSL thing really nicely. Then there's a pair of DBX 560As. That's my bass bus. I love the 560A. I talked about it before. I generally run something sort of distressor-like into those. Next to those is a pair of HRK ST, what, they can't read it from here, 552s, which are analog tape emulators. I have them running in mid-side. Again, it's just a nice little touch of transformer when you're doing a master or mix. Over the other side, we have got the Cranbourne Carnaby HE2 harmonic EQ. It's basically like a 3-band saturator kind of EQ. It's not really EQ, it adds harmonics rather than actually EQ. It's a beautiful thing. It's got filters top and bottom. It can work dual mono, stereo, or in mid-side. And it comes with a plug-in, digitally recallable. Every session just pops back up. That thing is absolutely stunning. Underneath that is the Golly cross compression EQ. So what's that? That is, you could think of it as a 2-band dynamic EQ. It can be that if you want it to be. If you use it in cross compression mode, what it basically does, you trigger compression from the low frequencies and then send it to the high frequencies and vice versa, which gives you this effect of lifting sort of rhythmic stuff out of the mix by using kind of like upward compression, but triggered by something from the low frequency for the highs and by the highs for the lows. It's difficult to understand, but it has an amazing effect of bringing things to life. If you get sent something to master that's a bit dull and the rhythm is a bit buried within it, that can lift it out and really give it some life. I love that thing. Underneath that is the Gain Lab Dictator. It's a very new compressor. It kind of has 2 modes. It has high comp and low mode. Low comp mode. The low comp mode sounds very like a, what do you call it, Fairchild kind of sound. It's got that sort of thick, gluey kind of vibe. In high comp mode, it's a little bit less like that, more suitable for a drum bus. The more you drive it, you can add more colour to it. It can be clean, or you can really, give it some, and it sounds great. I really like it. It either gets used as a drum bus compressor when I'm mixing, or I use it to add some really like nice thick colour when I'm mastering. Beneath that is a pair of Golden Age Project Comp 3As, LA3A clones. They're stereo linked. I absolutely love them. To me, those boxes are magic. I've always loved the LA3As. These sound spot on. They've also got the mod built in that people used to do to LA3As. I love it. My guitar bus is generally those. I'll run synths through them sometimes. And my stereo vocal bus will nearly always run through that as well. It's just magic. Everything sounds better when it's gone through there. So yeah, they're really some favourites. Bang in front of me here is the SPL Iron mastering compressor. This is my main mastering compressor for when I'm mastering, obviously. It's a beautiful thing, all tube. Has so much flexibility. He's got like a bunch of different rectifier settings that completely change the sound of it. The side chain is again incredibly clever. You can really do some different stuff with it. It's like having 6 different mastering compressors. On some settings you can really hear it, on others you can't so much. Sometimes I'm only taking off 1 dB when I'm mastering, sometimes maybe 4. It just depends how you set it up, but it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, totally love it. What else have I got? As you can see over there, I've got a monitor that is running Process Audio decibel metering. I love that. It's just it's just a wonderful, really useful thing. You can see absolutely everything that's going on, and I like it there. It's just in the corner of my eye line when I'm working, so every now and again I glance, and it's basically just checking nothing obvious is off. The LUFS meter is useful, obviously, and I use the phase meter all the time, but it's basically just to make sure that nothing weird is going on. So that's nice to have that there. I have over on this small 10-inch monitor, which is flipped into portrait mode, that is running PSP Metra, a new thing. Absolutely love that for the ballistics of a track, and for the LUFS, perfect. I love having that just sat there the whole time. Right in front of me here, sat into my desk. The desk, I should mention, was made by a guy from Chunky Studio Furniture. We sort of designed it together. I sent him a picture of what I wanted, and then he sent back what was possible, and then we sort of went backwards and forwards a bunch of times, and we ended up with this. But I really wanted my SSL controllers to be sat flush into the desk, which is done beautifully. So I've got the SSL UF1, which is the transport control and the fader. It does a bit of plugin control and stuff. And then I've got the UC1 for controlling all the SSL channel strip plugins, which I use a lot. What else have I got? Next to that, I've got the Blackmagic, what's it called? The DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor. I don't use DaVinci Resolve, I use Final Cut Pro, but I've got, basically there's a piece of software that hacks that and lets it work with Final Cut. So that's really useful, makes editing videos very quick and easy. Over here I've got a Tascam digital recorder which records these two mics while I'm doing these shows. Up there, that camera is a Lumix S5. The main camera back there is a Lumix S5 2X. That one captures directly to an SSD. This one captures to an SD card. The audio is capturing to another SD card. There's lights over there and over there for lighting me. There's lights up there and up there for lighting the gear. Yeah, that's about it. There's aircon, which I leave off when I'm doing these kind of things because it gets on my nerves a bit. But that's about it. There you go. That's my studio. Hope you like it. I'm sure there's going to be questions. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. Yeah, a lot of this gear I've grown very attached to over time, and that's what happens when you're mixing and mastering all the time. You do find yourself using the same things over and over, and then you don't ever want to give them up. I know a lot of people are constantly swapping up their studios, and I find that hard because there's things that you just learn to rely on, you know, for years, and I don't really want to stop having them. However, there are a couple of things on my sort of wish list at the moment, and I kind of made a bit of a decision when I did this refit. I'm like, right, that's it, no more rack space. If I want anything new, something has to go. And already that's hurting me because I'm like, there's a couple of things I want and I haven't got room. So you'll see what ends up happening there. Either I will finally part company with something, maybe, or I'll add some more rack space somewhere. I don't know yet. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little tour of the studio. I'm sure there'll be another one should there be any updates, which there might be in the relatively near future. Anyway, if you could like the video, that really helps. If you could subscribe to the channel, that helps even more. 2 Instagram accounts, Mixdown Mastering, find out what I get up to in here every week. There's the audio firm, find out when the next updates are coming and the new plugins are coming. There's the Studio Life website, where there's the plugin top 5 and there's information on courses on mixing and mastering. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you soon. Adios.